Hello and welcome. Hello and welcome to SW6 Essential. Joe Sansom, how are you?
Yeah, I'm doing all right, thanks. How about you?
I'm frustrated. I'm slightly down after not after last night's performance necessarily, but just after the two games. Narrow losses where we put in really good performances. And Parker's record broken is the title. It's because Parker, before last night, had never lost with Fulham after taking the lead. We took the lead last night and we did lose, Joe, to Manchester United. First of all, let's just get your thoughts on the game from a Fulham perspective and how we played.
Yeah, there were quite a few records broken last night because I was looking into it until last night. Obviously, as you just said, we'd never lost a game where we'd taken the lead. We were the only team in the league, I believe, and correct me if I'm wrong, that hadn't scored in the first 15 minutes of a game.
Oh,
We were the only team that hadn't conceded a goal from outside the box. That ended as well. And then the opposite of that, not a record, which is something that keeps happening, is United go 1-0 down or 2-0 down sometimes away from home, and they managed to win the game. And I was just speaking to you off camera. As soon as we scored, it was almost, and it's happened against Man United a few times down the years, have we scored a bit too early? And it's a great goal. I thought that our performance overall was good. I don't think it was quite as good as we have been recently, but I still think it was a good performance. I thought that Anderson, well, the whole back line really, but especially Anderson and Tete really stood out to me last night. I thought Joe Bryan did fine. Possibly, I said on Twitter, I don't know if it's a bit harsh because we don't really know if Pogba's going to shoot from there on his weaker foot, supposedly weaker foot. Could he have got closer to Pogba? I think so. But I think we did fine. And I still think Man United were the better team and Man United deserved to win. It's frustrating that their first goal came from a rare mistake from Areola because it was very preventable. And just last week, have I jinxed it? I don't know. I was talking about the fact that we don't seem to concede those preventable goals anymore. It seems to be just a well-worked goal like Harry Kane's or a wonder goal like Pogba's or a penalty most recently. But yeah, like you, I feel really frustrated, not just with the United game, but with the Chelsea game as well. I feel that we could have got something from both games. I'm trying to remind myself that we are playing two good teams. Chelsea have been quite poor this season, but they'll probably finish in the top six. United will finish in the top four minimum. I'm just trying to remind myself of that. We've got two big games coming up, and I'm trying to not get too disheartened, but I'm getting quite frustrated at the fact that the good performances are not being backed up by points.
Yeah, and that's a bit of problem all season where I've tried to make a case for Fulham being a good team. And the media have sort of bought into that. They've improved is the big word. But in terms of points, we haven't won since Leicester, which feels like an age ago. And now we've got games coming up against teams we have to beat. It's not, it'd be great to get a result. It's now we have to win these games to get out of trouble. And to play so well against Chelsea and Manchester United, or we played decently and not get any points from those two games is a bit of a sickener for me. Let's talk about the first goal, Ademola Lookman. I don't know how you reacted, but this is what happened at my house. We're watching the game. How many minutes? 4 or 5 minutes into the game. We're all just chatting. Oh, good start from Fulham. Suddenly, Lookman gets played in, and we all just froze as he whacked the ball in the net. And we were like, well, that's just going to be offside, isn't it? We'll wait. We didn't react. We didn't cheer or anything. And then the time went on. Let's see the replay. He's on side. And then suddenly an eruption of cheers from the brothers and myself. Very strange. And this is the first time this has happened since we've been in the Premier League with VAR, not knowing. Actually, Lookman's goal against Leicester as well. I did this. I didn't celebrate because I was like, that could be offside. Very strange. But if you were in the ground, this is what I was saying to them. The flag didn't go up, of course, because it wasn't offside. So you would assume that if you were in the ground, there would have been limbs at the back of the hammy end.
Yeah, for sure. I mean, it was a really well worked goal. I was the same. I didn't celebrate. And I found it very weird when the goal was given, because I was sort of like,
the moment's gone. You know what I mean?
yeah, yeah. I mean, obviously I was delighted, but I didn't really know what to do with myself. I mean, Lookman is probably the one player in our team at the moment that I do want to go through one-on-one. I can't think of him missing one for us so far. He's very clinical in that area. And this is the thing. If our chances fell to him all the time, we'd probably be winning a lot more games. But the whole reason we're not getting these points is because a lot of our team, Cavallero, Loftus-Cheek, even thinking Mitrovic, Kamara, when they come on, not clinical enough. And Manchester United last night were clinical, I would say. Created some good chances. Areola made some good saves, hit the post. But nothing that I thought was that clear cut, other than the one save Areola made from a Cavani header. So you've got a mistake and then a wonder goal, and they've scored twice. And it's just the clinical nature of these top sides is always going to sadly outweigh our really good play. And this is why I would 100% say that if we looked at it last week, as we did, and said, okay, you lose against United and Chelsea, but you win against Brighton and you win against West Brom, we'd all take it. But the problem is now there's a lot of pressure on these games. Thank goodness we picked up something at Spurs, because with those fixtures, it could have easily been 3 defeats in a row. And the performances certainly didn't merit that. But we've got a lot of pressure now on these next 2 games to pick up, in my eyes, at the very minimum, 4 points. I think we should 100% be going for 2 wins. And Brighton up first, that's the one where if we were to lose that as just a worst case scenario, I think they'd be 8 points ahead of us. And I know they're not the only team we're trying to catch, but that is a huge gap.
Yeah, it is. What gives me a little bit of confidence going into that game and the next 2 games is we played Brighton pretty recently. And I feel we were second best for most of the game and probably got away with one in terms of the handball and the VAR situation. I have a lot more confidence with Fulham playing away from home. We've got a more expansive pitch. Our shape is better. I feel like we control the game better away from home, and it feels like we're not going to concede as much as we do on this narrow Craven Cottage pitch. So going into that game against Brighton, I have confidence that we can beat them. And Brighton's home record is not great at all this season, or even for a whole calendar year, going back 2020. And then the West Brom game, which has now been confirmed for the BBC. I mean, the neutrals won't like it, but that's a huge, huge game of football. West Brom's home form has been terrible of late. They got a great win against against Wolves at the weekend, and then narrowly missed out to West Ham in this week. I genuinely feel like the way we play, we can get results at those places, but we have to do it. There's no point of us sitting here next week and going, well, we played well against Brighton, but here we are again sitting with just a point, or we lost the game. Now it's time for Fulham to pull their finger out, take their chances. And Joe, it leads me on to my next point. Guess who takes chances? Strikers. Guess what we don't have? A new striker. I would have thought by now there'd be something, but there just isn't.
Yeah, I mean, it's really frustrating. I'm the same as you. I'm sort of thinking we threw away 4 games at the start of the season by not getting the defenders in quick enough. And if we'd have made signings earlier, we probably wouldn't have got centre-backs of the same quality as Tosin and as Anderson, and that's true. The problem is, these players are brilliant. We're not getting the results, and those 3 games at the start of the season 4 games even, might come back to cost us at the end. And is that worth paying? I don't know. I don't think so, because we might end up going down. And it's the same situation now. There might be a great deal on deadline day, but at that point we might have just lost to West Brom or not picked up the points we need from the Brighton and West Brom games. And at that point, you sort of think, well, great, this striker might come in and start firing. Is it too late? And I think that if we don't get the results in these next 2, it could be. So at this stage, it looks unlikely that we're going to have a striker in for at least the Brighton game. So there's 9 days until West Brom. at the time of filming. I'm just getting very concerned because it's very clear to everyone, neutrals as well, are noticing it, that our all-round play is excellent, but it's not going to pick up points because we're not clinical enough. And we had a few chances yesterday. We had a chance against Chelsea at 0-0 with Caballero. And then second half yesterday as well, both of them fell to Loftus-Cheek, one to Lookman as well. Well, you think a clinical striker probably puts at least one of them away. We need someone in, and I really hope that we're not going to look back on this season as a big what if, because I really do still think that this team, if it stays up, is a great foundation to start with and really push on. But I'm as positive, I think, as you can be at this point in time, and I'm realistic in that I'm not going to be positive if we don't get the points we need against West Brom and Brighton. We've been sat here, we've had difficult fixtures, even going back as far as Southampton or at home on Boxing Day, where we've sort of gone, I would take a point in that one. We can't do that now. We've got these 2 games against teams around us. If we want to stay up, we've got to beat them.
Yeah, we have to get a win. We have to start with a win against Brighton, and the difficult thing about that is Brighton are in a similar situation to us. They need points as well to survive. Newcastle lost again to Arsenal. Again, they're only on 19 points. I know we're sitting on 12, but I just feel as though the less points that Newcastle pick up, maybe we can slowly start to close that gap, and then suddenly they go from 15th to 16th and 17th. And this is not what is going to happen, but it may happen because I don't think Newcastle are a particularly good team. I've said it every week. Joe, the most heartbreaking thing about this situation we're in is, we went down in 13-14 and in 18-19, and we were like, oh, gutting. I hate relegation. What a horrible feeling. I think this one will hurt the most because we're so invested in this team, invested in the manager, invested in the system, like likable characters. We were talking yesterday. You said that how much you really are beginning to like Tosin Adarabioyo, or just Tosin as we call him. I think this guy is just different gravy. I just think he's Premier League quality, and he's going to have a fantastic career. And the fact that we picked him up for 2 million is astounding business.
Well, thank God he's a permanent signing, because if the worst was to happen and we go down, he's the best defender in the Championship already, in my eyes. Unbelievable. I mean, I didn't mention him earlier when I said about the defence, but he drops at least a 7 out of 10 performance every game. And at times, I think has actually outshone Anderson. I don't think that was the case last night. I thought Anderson had one of his best games for us, but Tosin is just a brilliant player, so young as well. And like you said, it's completely true. I think we're a striker away from having a brilliant chance of staying up. And I think we will get a striker, by the way, but I'm just hoping
we will
for these. I honestly cannot see a scenario where we don't get one. I mean, it may be that we get one just in on the last minute deadline day. I'm not happy with that, but I'm 100% certain we get one in. Who, I don't know. Bloody Glenn Murray's available apparently at Watford if anyone wants him. No thanks, by the way. But yeah, so like you said, this would be the most disheartening relegation out of the 3, because in 2013-14 we were rubbish. 2018-19 we were worse. And this season, other than the first 4 games, we've been pretty good. Performance-wise, mid-table in my eyes since the even since the Wolves game, really. There's been a few blips, such as Everton at home, where I don't think we were great for the first half. But on the whole, these performances don't merit relegation, and that's why it would be so disheartening. Last week, we had probably our most positive video ever, where we were just talking about how great this team is. And I still 100% stand by that. These 2 results don't change that. But with every defeat, I do get more and more nervous that we're not going to get what we deserve. And we need to prove that we aren't a relegation team in these next 2 games.
Completely. I'm struggling to remember, I think the first half against Everton, we were bad. But since then, I can't think of a half or a game where we've been like, yeah, that just wasn't our day. We just weren't good enough. And that speaks volumes to the progression we've made. Like even the defeats the last 2 games, I don't think. Obviously, playing with 10 men for the second half against Chelsea was difficult, but we still gave them a game going forward. We still kept them out almost to the end. It's not like we've been battered by Manchester United in that second half and didn't deserve anything from the game. I genuinely think on the break we had chances and maybe we could have stuck them away. Joe, my next question to you is about our man Alexander Mitrovic. Now, he came on last night and he almost got one of the luckiest deflections. I mean, that really did haunt me last night. Eric Bailly almost putting that into his own net. That would have been, I think, a well-deserved 2-2 draw. But is Mitrovic, my question, is Mitrovic now an impact player off the bench? Or does he start in and around some games? Not talking about the Burnley game of the weekend, like Premier League.
Yeah, it's tough. I think he should be starting some games. But then again, that first half performance yesterday, what would Mitrovic have offered? I don't know. The way we were playing was all to do with pace, getting in behind, targeting Maguire, the slower side of the centre halves. And it worked for the first half, to be honest. Second half was a different question, and I think we needed him. He caused a lot of problems, but I'm not sure that if he started, it would have been that way the whole game. It's the thing with momentum. The end of the game was completely different to the first half. Man United started to naturally sit back, and he was the perfect player, and I think he should have come on a lot earlier. Do I think he should start against Brighton? Yes, especially if we don't have another striker in by then. I don't know what Cavaleiro offers at the moment in that position other than pace. Lookman, I know, was more central yesterday, so I'd put him back on the wing. And obviously we got Bobby Reid back as well from suspension. So I'd play either Bobby Reid or Mitrovic, or even both up front against Brighton, because I think we need to ask them questions. And 8 minutes at the end of the game is not enough for him to properly impact the game. And Kamara came on just before that. I think the substitution should have been Mitrovic on when Kamara came on, in my eyes. But yeah, and I think that he should start starting games, especially if we don't get another striker in. The ideal scenario in my eyes is to get a striker in that fits this new system more. And by that, I just basically mean a little bit faster than Mitrovic. I don't want to get rid of Mitrovic.
No.
I want to see him involved, and I want to see him scoring goals. And that's why I'd probably quite like to see him involved against Burnley at the weekend, so that hopefully he can get a goal, probably the only first teamer I'd want involved in that game. But in answer to your question, I think he should be getting more minutes. I think that the games against some of the bigger clubs, such as United, that are more going to be onto us rather than us onto them, are probably games where I wouldn't start Mitrovic in the first half, and I'd bring him on for an impact and to change it up if we need to. But I would definitely start him against these teams that we need to be beating.
Yeah, completely agree. I think Mitrovic still is a huge asset for us, and even the 8 minutes he did play yesterday had that chance. I mean, he headed it across goal to try and get someone on the end of it, but it just so happened it deflected just wide, and that would have been down to his endeavour to head the ball across if that would have gone in the net. Burnley at the weekend, I'm kind of just like, I'm going to watch it with a few beers because it's not a game that really matters. If we get through, great, we're into the 5th round. If we're out, focus on the league, as every fan on the planet says when they go out the FA Cup. What's my next question, Joe? Parker, would you say his one flaw, because I love the guy, his one flaw, like you mentioned, his substitutions sometimes are a little bit too late or the wrong change?
Yeah, probably. I mean, I think the Chelsea game was a bigger example of this because I think I was saying to you actually yesterday in the Man United game, until Pogba scored, I wasn't thinking we need to change it here. I thought we started the second half much better, a bit more in control. They hadn't really troubled us, and then a goal out of nothing. So I think that the system was working. Against Chelsea, start of the second half, we started to tire a bit, and Cavaleiro was struggling to hold it up. I think he needs to make a change there. But then and there, 60 minutes in at the latest. But yesterday, I think it was more personnel rather than the timing of things. I think Mitrovic should have come on earlier. And yeah, I think it's a bit harsh to say that it's a big flaw, but it's definitely shown a bit in the last 2 games. I think the opposition managers have been a bit more proactive and he's been more reactive. And yeah, so I would say that it's been a flaw in the last 2 games. In general, I think substitutions have been okay this season. But the last 2 games, in particular the Chelsea game, might have cost us slightly.
The Premier League announced this week that they are televising all the games until the end of February. I don't see fans back in the ground at any point this season. Maybe May, but I don't see it happening. So I reckon the Premier League will just say at the end of every month, or the beginning of each month, right, this month everything will be on TV again, all the games. So the Leicester game is on BT Sport. West Ham 5:30 on Sky. I think that's the one before Leicester, and then the BBC one, like I said earlier, with West Brom. Let's talk about Harrison Reed, because this guy's really put a couple of decent shifts in the last couple of games, just intercepting literally everything in the middle of the park. I've been really impressed with Harrison Reed, and I love his he's almost like a slip and slide. He'll do this thing where he slide tackles nobody just to keep the ball. It's quite remarkable. He shields the ball by staying on the ground, using his body, and he did it really well to good effect yesterday. So how have you found Harrison Reed? Because this is a permanent signing we both wanted. And I think he struggled at the start of the season, but now he's really finding his feet in this team.
Yeah, first few games he struggled, and then when he came back from injury, first game that stuck out to me was that Leicester away game where I think he was flawless. And since then, he's been phenomenal. Last night, he was probably my man of the match. And the battle between him and Lamina for this spot is really good because we both had some brilliant performances. I mean, I think that I'd like to see a return of that midfield 3 of Reed, Lamina, and Guisa that we don't really see too often, but I think it's a really solid midfield, and then that allows us to play Mitrovic up front, to play another forward player, because as it stands, we've got the back 5 is set in stone, other than when Robinson comes back and probably swaps with Brighton. So I think that if we have those midfield 3, we can afford to basically stick 2 up front. And with the width that's offered from our wing-backs, I think we can afford to do that. And Harrison Reed yesterday covered every blade of grass. I'm never worried when he's sort of in front of whoever's attacking. I always think Harrison Reed should sort this out, or at least stop the danger. And he was the signing that, like, as he said, we were both so excited about in the summer, and he's showing why. And whatever league we're in next season, whether we're still in the Premier League, whether we've sadly gone down, he's going to be in our midfield once again. And I just love the guy. I think he's brilliant.
Yeah, he's put in a real good shift. And you make a good point there, because obviously Lamina's been out for the last couple of games. Completely forgot about the fact that we could just play all 3 of them in midfield. And what we could do is play the 5-3-2 and then have Ademola Lookman up front. And then if we get a striker in, we've got a nice system going on here. But as you said, Mitrovic can still play in that striker role as well. But I just think we need pace going forward. What was I going to say now? Areola made a mistake. And that was quite sad to see. It was a slippy pitch. That ball was wet.
Yeah.
It's one of them ones, isn't it?
Yeah, one flaw Areola's got, and I think it is only one, is that when some balls come into the box, in particular on the floor or close to it, sometimes rather than trying to catch it, he seems to sort of palm it back into the box.
Yeah.
And a lot of the times it falls to a Fulham player. Yesterday, obviously it didn't, and it should be easy for a goalkeeper of his quality, but he recovered well and made some great saves after that. I think we can forgive him one mistake, but obviously it was a bad mistake. Chelsea one before was a bit of a mistake by him as well, but it was, I think, a bit harsh on him, because he obviously didn't want to palm it out for a corner, because Chelsea had basically been battering us from every set piece, and that's where they looked most like scoring. And he's so unlucky that it fell to Mason Mount. It could have fallen anywhere else. Everyone else was marked. So really unfortunate, but I'm glad to see that it didn't affect his confidence because he had a really good, assured display after that mistake where he could do nothing about anything else other than save the saves he made. And that Pogba goal was just a brilliant strike.
Yeah, it was a fantastic goal. It was a dagger to the heart when he scored that. But Areola has saved and gained us a lot more points
Yeah.
than lost this season. Ademola Lookman, a report came out in the Sun this week that Ademola Lookman was available to buy from Leipzig for £15 million in the summer. Now, that's an absolute steal. I don't know whether it's just come from one source. I would imagine his price is at least double that, but maybe I'm wrong. If we were to buy Ademola Lookman for the same price we bought Anthony Knockaert and Ivan Caballero for, in hindsight, those two deals, Caballero is still in the team, Knockaert is at Forest. It's been a bit of a nightmare in terms of that deal, those deals, but I think Ademola Lookman, I know Leipzig see him as a major asset, but he's Wandsworth, local, Fulham, very close, southwest London. It makes sense, and he does he's buying into the system. He's buying into Parker. We have to try and surely get him if we stay up.
100%, and that 15 million is just, as you said, it's a steal. I think that I'm sort of thinking that report must be wrong because he's worth so much more than that. But if that's how they value him,
maybe they misheard. It was 50 million. Not
yeah, Alan Nixon lurking in the bushes is misheard, but it's one of these things. He's a great player, and if we do stay up, Areola, Anderson, Aina, Lamina, Lookman, and Loftus-Cheek, probably one that we're not even going to attempt because I think he's just going back to Chelsea. All unbelievable players. We were sort of talking about this the other day where we were saying how much do you think they'd all cost, and we were getting some crazy figures by assuming that Lookman would be 30, 40 million due to his age and quality. So 15 million is unbelievable. And if that is the case and we don't do it, I am shocked because
it's got to be something we sort out now. If they're saying that, we should go to them and be like, well, do you want to do this deal then? Because we'll happily take him on a 4-year contract. Just
or at least say, well, if we stay up, we'll sign him for 15 million or something like to put an option in place.
Of course, yeah.
Because the reports were saying that in the summer we wanted an option, but it didn't happen, obviously. And you can understand why, from their point of view, I wouldn't put an option on him. I wouldn't let him go out on loan because I think he's brilliant. But we should. I'm just praying that we get him.
Well, if we want to get him, we've got to stay up first. And Joe, we will wrap it up because I just feel like maybe today there's a lot less to talk about than there was last week. Let's just talk about these next two games. Then I know that we've touched on it, but let's talk about it some more. Brighton and Hove Albion away. All I think about when I think about Brighton playing at home is just Solly March and Trossard having like a million shots. I remember that game against Man United when they lost 3-2.
Yeah.
How on earth did they win that game? I don't know what to think of Graham Potter's Brighton at the moment because they went to Leeds and beat them 1-0 and Leeds were atrocious. Don't let Gary Neville hear this because he somehow doesn't want to batter Leeds at all this season, but they were poor. And then the West Brom game against Sam Allardyce's team. I think they're very fragile at home and can be got at, but they've managed to get a couple of good results under Allardyce so far. So how do you see the game against Brighton going first?
Brighton's a weird one because I think they're in a similar position to us in that their performances have been better than their results. And they were probably similar to us due a win, which they got against Leeds. I think it's the tougher of the two games against a very technical team, and I think it all depends on the first goal. Despite this title, Parker's record broken, we are very good when we go ahead, and we play the team that is the best at comebacks in the country and has been for years. And I feel that if we get the first goal, we can beat Brighton. They haven't won at home since they beat Arsenal in the first lockdown, so that must have been back in June or July. I don't want to be the first team at all. And I think that a point is only acceptable here if we beat West Brom, and even then I'll be very deflated. I think that this is the big one. This is the one that we have to win, and I am going to back us to do it because I think our performances have been good. Brighton are also a very good footballing team, and we just need to hope that they keep misfiring. But it's sort of the battle of the misfiring teams. Who's going to click into gear first? I really hope it's us.
I think we're due a win. I don't necessarily mean that. That doesn't necessarily mean that we are going to win. But I feel like if we keep it solid, we keep it tight at the back, the way we play, the way in which we move through the transitions and get our counterattacks going. If we can put the ball in the back of the net, obviously, I think we can and probably will. No. I think we can beat Brighton. I'm not going to say probably will, but I genuinely feel like the wins are coming and they need to come quickly. Otherwise, we're going to be on fraud watch, and I don't want to be on fraud watch. People could talk about our performances, but if we haven't got any wins to back it up, and this is what our argument was last night on the group chat, people were saying, well, Parker's only got 2 wins from 18 games. And 2 wins from 18 games is not good, but it doesn't feel like Parker has done a bad job this season. You know, Slavisa, I feel like, did a bad job when we got into the Premier League. I feel with Parker, it's just hard because every week I'm talking about how I really rate this team and the manager, but we simply don't have the results to back it up. So it's like empty words. And I'll say that in the group chat and people will be like, oh yeah, but he's won 2 out of 18. I mean, where are the points?
Yeah. I mean, sadly, we can't really argue with it. It's a results business, and currently we're the 3rd worst team in the league. We have a chance now to prove that we are better than that, and it's going to be hard. I think these are 2 really hard games. West Brom are going to be up for it as well. They seem to have a bit of a new fire in their bellies recently. Quite unlucky at West Ham in points, but this is when we've got to turn the talk into action. I mean, this channel is now a gold mine if we go and lose these games with the positivity we've shown. But we're wearing our heart on our sleeves. We think we're good enough. We have to see it now.
Yeah. You can talk about XG, you can talk about trends, you can talk about green shoots, but simply we don't have enough points at the moment to start bigging us up. I mean, we do big ourselves up, but in terms of to get ourselves out of trouble, we need those points, and hopefully they come. And Joe, I said these next 2 games, but for now, let's focus on one game at a time, one Premier League game at a time, because next Thursday we would have just played Brighton, and obviously the Burnley game we can touch on as well. For now, we'll just focus on that Brighton game. That's huge against Graham Potter's Brighton and Hove Albion. I'm going to ask you for a score prediction, and that's a cruel question.
Yeah. I'm going to go for a 2-1 Fulham win at Brighton. Like you, don't care about the Burnley game. Obviously, I'll be a bit disappointed if we lose, because I'll always be disappointed if we lose, but it doesn't matter to me. Brighton's a big one, and I think that this is our biggest game of the season so far, and I'll go 2-1 Fulham. Yeah.
I care about the Burnley game. I want us to progress in the cup because I know who we're playing next, which is Bournemouth or Crawley, which is an opportunity for a quarter-final. But I wouldn't be putting out our strongest 11. I'm sure we won't. And in terms of the Brighton game, I'm going to go because I back us, and I always will back us, and I back Parker, and I love the club, and I love him. I'll go Brighton 0, Fulham 1, and we might nick it. Maybe like a first half goal, and we just completely see it out, which would be great. This has been SW6 Essential. It has been my therapy session this week because I've really needed a bit of cheering up and a bit of a boost ahead of what is a really important run of fixtures for Fulham. Joe, it's been a pleasure as always.
Yeah, loved it, Jack. Thank you.
We'll see you next Thursday, where we will either going to be champagne popping or tears dropping onto my table in front of me here because I'll be crying my eyes out that we've lost another game or drawn or whatever happens. Thanks very much for watching. And yeah, come on, Fulham.